So I just recently bought my first house and there's some branches growing over the top of the house. Some family friends helped me out and chopped down the branches, which left me a lot of wood, so I decided to make a log rack. Although disclaimer, it is recommended that you let your wood dry out for at least a year or so to make sure that any unwelcome guests don't get tracked back into the house inside the wood. So I started off by cutting out the top. For one side it was 47.5 inches and then for the other side it was about 45 inches. So I just cut it at 47.5 so I could trim off the excess later. So for this cut I just decided to do it freehand. I just took my time and cut really slow. But if you feel more comfortable using a straight edge to help you guide your cut, you could. It would probably be a lot more precise and a lot faster. And since I was freehanding the cut, I decided to go back and double check the cut to make sure it was straight. You could do these cuts with a circular saw, but I would recommend just getting a table saw. I bought mine for $50 off of Craigslist a couple of years ago and it's still holding up fine, so I definitely think it's worth the investment. I wanted it to be relatively low, so I only cut it to be about 18 inches high or so. And that way I can get two sides from one strip of plywood. And once I'd made all the cuts, I just laid everything out to be sanded. Before painting, I'm just spraying a little bit of water onto this cloth so I can wipe off the excess dust from sanding. So I'm making the base for it to stand on, or a toe kick, with some 2x4s. So you can see here in this clip I was cutting down the 2x4 in half, but after looking at it I decided I actually didn't like it that much, so I just decided to leave it at the full height. So I'd actually cheated a little bit. The camera actually died while I was building the other side, so I just continued on and built it anyways, off camera while the battery charged. I'm just double checking the spacing to make sure everything fits. So I'm just removing the trim with some chisels. I guess it would be optimal to be using trim remover tools, but I just worked with what I had at the moment. And to be honest, the chisels work fine. I used one to make some space and then I used the other one to get me some leverage, making sure not to damage the wall or the trim. At one point the paint actually started lifting off with the baseboard as well, so I just had to run a blade along the baseboard to make sure that the paint didn't come with it. To hold it together, I'm just using brad nails and wood glue. It'll have most of its structural integrity from the backboard until the wood glue dries. So you can see that this backboard is pretty warped. So to pull it into shape, I'm just going to use the screws rather than the brad nails. And then I'm double checking everything to make sure it's square. So I had some extra wood lying around, so I just decided to use it to cut the trim. But you can actually pick up pre-painted trim from your local hardware store. And it'll probably save you a lot of time with the sanding and the painting. So I found this pre-painted trim from Home Depot. I thought it looked fancy and it matched the rest of my fireplace, so I decided to use it. As I mentioned earlier, this is the base that I decided to go with. It was just a full 2x4, so it lifts up about 3.5 inches. I used the stud finder to find the studs, and then I screwed it into place. So I marked out where the outlet and then the HDMI cord is, but I'm probably not going to be using the outlet, so I only cut out space for the HDMI cord. And if I change my mind later, I can just remove the unit from the wall and cut it out. So yeah, the stud finder definitely wasn't able to find the stud behind the 3/4 inch plywood, or at least consistently. So I ended up just using the stud finder above and then lining up the drill underneath and then drilling it in from the bottom. I found these trim pieces from Home Depot once again. They were pretty thick, so I cut them down in half so I could have twice as much length. And I think they really add a professional look to the project. Now I'm using white silicone, and I'm just filling in all the nail holes and all the cracks and crevices. I actually have a tool to smooth out the silicone, but I actually find it more helpful with just a finger. It allows you to maneuver it a little bit better, in my opinion. For the finishing touches, I decided to add white screw covers. That way I still have access to the screws if I want to make any changes. I picked up these mirrors from Walmart. They're about $6 a piece. I just removed the frame and then I removed the excess silicone. For a little bit of extra support, I decided to cut a groove into the frame so that the glass can sit in it. And then followed that up with some silicone to the back of the mirror. I found the studs in the wall and then I screwed the frame to it. Then I attached the trim pieces with silicone, making sure that everything was level and lined up properly. The trim piece I purchased was plastic and it actually had a little barcode on it. So to remove it, I just put a little bit of acetone onto a paper towel and wiped it. So this is my first house build I did since I bought the house, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I'm not a professional contractor by any means, and I just like to build stuff. So if you like these style of home renovations or projects, let me know in the comment section down below.